Good day, everybody, and welcome back to the dark side. This is part 4 of the Roots mod, when we're getting into something really interesting about the mod, which is the actual magic. Today, we're going to be looking at the spells that you can get from the mod. So let's get into part 4. So I arranged this walkthrough in parts of what I would kind of put together on a single staff to be able to use them together. So let's get into the first one being the kind of useful one. So this adds quality of life spells that just help you in your day-to-day life. The first one is Sky Soarer. So that you get from crafting a ladder, petals, an arrow, aubergine seeds, and a cloudberry. You put all those in the mortar and pestle, or in the mortar, use the pestle, and it will give you the spell dust. Put that spell dust into the imbuer and place a wand that's either blank or has other spells that you want to use along with this on it. And what the spell does is it lets you fly while using cloudberries, of course, but it's pretty cool and neat in a pinch. And I would suggest having this on you if you don't have another form of flight. The second one is very useful, especially in conjunction with the second part of this, which is magnetism. So magnetism is crafted with an iron ingot, redstone, paper, wild roots, and an aubergine in a similar fashion as the others. And what this does is say you have some stuff lying around and you can't reach it, or you just want to collect a bunch of stuff without running around, you just activate the magnetism and it brings it into your inventory. The third one we're going to look at is Phalite, which I use to abundance. What this does is it makes these little light sources around, and these spells do have a short cooldown, most of them. Some of them are longer, but I simply carry this around with me instead of torches because as long as you have the cloudberries in your component or apothecary pouch, you'll always have a light source with you. So for this, you're going to need two cloudberries, specifically acacia bark, sunflower, and a jack-o'-lantern. Then another fun spell that's very useful, especially when you go exploring oceans, is the second wind spell. So for that, you're going to need Dugonia, iron ingots, a glass bottle, clay, and sugar canes. So let's go back into survival mode and we're going to go explore this puddle that we made. And as you'll see, my air is running out. But as soon as you activate the spell, it gives you the full breath back, and you can activate that after the cooldowns, and it will reset your air the whole time. Very useful to have, especially when you don't have any potions or similar artifacts to give you water breathing yet. Then one of the most useful ones for me, especially when dealing with gathering obsidian for other mods like Tinkers, is the Shatter spell. So for that, you're going to need the stalactites, a stone pickaxe, flint, TNT, and cobblestone. Now, what this does is it, as you can guess, instantly breaks blocks. So I put these obsidian down in specific formations for a reason. So what happens is if you look at a block from the front, it's going to break that block and the one below it. And if you look at a block from the top, it's going to break that one and the one in front of it. If there is nothing in front of it, it won't break anything except the block you're looking at. Very useful, and that's the first ones, or the spells that I typically put together on a single one. Then we come to the farming section, which is also very useful. So the first one is growth infusion. A growth infusion will need two saplings of any variety, some terra moss, aubergines, and wheat. And what this spell does is say you have a single piece of something you're growing. This is especially useful when you're working with the other ingredients that you crafted earlier if you want to expand them. So you just look at the crop, use the spell on it, and it will grow a single crop for you, as you can see there. The second spell in the farming section will be Rampant Growth. So Rampant Growth will need a Bereskia, a Spirit Herb, a Golden Apple, and 2 saplings of any variety. I'm going to use this spell along with some of the others that I'm going to demonstrate. We'll get to that. The third spell is Harvest. So that is wild wheat, beetroot seeds, a golden hoe, seeds, and aubergine seeds. So for this, I'm going to demonstrate it alongside the magnetism spell, because these 3 spells I usually use in conjunction with each other. So we're going to come over to this neat little farm we set up, and being the productive person that we are, I didn't want to go around harvesting each of these individually, so I used my harvest spell to harvest everything in the vicinity of the spell instantly. You can then use the magnetism spell to kind of gather all of them at once, and if you want to regrow all of them together, you can use the rampant growth spell. And as you can see, systematically it's growing all of the crops around me. These 3 together can be very useful for starting and growing ingredients for yourself. Now, the last spell that for me is associated with farming is back over here, which is going to be our Sense Animal spell. The Sense Animal spell is made using wild wheat, a carrot, a lead, wheat, and a golden nugget. This is not the most useful spell, but can be used in a variety of circumstances. And what it basically does is it outlines any animals around you with this little glow, and you can see them through blocks. And that's the farming spells that we have. The next one is going to be our actual damage spells. So some of these can do real damage and really help you kind of take down big bosses. One of these specifically being the Radiant spell I usually use to take down the dragons from Ice and Fire, as it's very useful in taking them down quickly with as little damage to you as possible. The first one we're going to look at is Wildfire. Wildfire is made using an infernal bulb, orange dye, TNT, gunpowder, and charcoal. So to demonstrate it, we have a few willing volunteers over here. We're just going to put them down. And if you have the spell staff in your hand, you can just set them alight. Not the strongest spell, but still very useful. The second spell we're going to look at is over here, the Acid Cloud spell. That is used or made using a baffle cap, spider eye, lime dye, cactus, and rotten flesh. This spell is specifically made for targeting groups of enemies. So say you're in a cave, there's a lot of mobs or a horde or anything that spawns, you can just stand in the middle of them, activate the spell, and it kills them all at the same time, releasing an acid cloud all around you. Acid Cloud is very useful. The only problem with this is it needs baffle caps, which are a lot harder to grow than any of the other ingredients. Then my favorite attack spell, Radiance. Radiance is made using cloudberries, glowstone, torch, yellow dye, and a Bereskia. Now we're just going to get our volunteers back here. So this shoots an intense beam of light, knocking back enemies. This disables their fight mechanisms as well in most cases, and can also kill these little ghosts. Very useful to have. It just eats through these ingredients, so make sure that you have enough of them to go around if you travel and want to rely on this spell. Next, we have Life Drain. So let me just get rid of all of these. Life Drain is made using Moonglow seeds, Moonglow leaves, an iron sword, a baffle cap, and a cactus. So to demonstrate this, we're going to go back into survival mode, plop down our little volunteers here, They're doing real damage to us, but we just drain their life. It restores our health while killing them as well. And as you can see, it has a nifty knockback feature as well. So it's very useful to use when you're in a pinch and are losing life really quickly. Then our last attack spell is Rose Thorns. That is red dye, a rose bush, terra moss, bone, and cactus. So let's demonstrate this spell as well. Just going to aim it, and again, not the strongest spell from this mod, but still very useful nonetheless. All of these use different kinds of ingredients, so it is useful to have these on hold if you ever run out of an ingredient in a pinch. Then our second last category is going to be defensive spells. Our first one is Dandelion Winds. Dandelion Winds is made from runic dust, which is runestone put in a mortar and pestle, oak leaves, dandelion, cloudberry, and terra spores. This is very useful again when facing a big horde of monsters because it just blows them away. It also blows away anything you point this at and kind of just helps you stay safe if there's something running at you. It might also cause them to have full damage, as you saw. Then we have Sense Danger, which is Gold Nugget, Spider Eye, Compass, any bark, and Aubergines. So similar to the Sense Animal, this just outlines any hostile mobs around you. Much more useful than the Sense Animal one, as this can kind of gives you an indication of any danger that's around you. Then we have Sanctuary, which is made with milk, a Pereskia, armor stand, and spruce bark, and a wild root. So again, to demonstrate, we're going to put these little friends here. We're going to go back into survival mode, and they're coming too close to me, so I'm going to just push them away. Very useful to keep danger as far away from you. This, of course, does not help a lot with ranged enemies, but can help in a pinch. Our fourth defensive spell is Gaze, or I have no idea how to pronounce that, but point being that's a carrot on a stick, a lead, a cobweb, terra spores, and baffle cap. So let's go back into survival mode. These little friends are going to want to chase us to eat our brains, but placing this spell on them will kind of prevent them from having that attack mentality and can nullify them for a couple of seconds. This will not be effective against hordes of mobs, but as you can see, if there's just a few mobs or even just one mob, this will be able to protect you from them for a couple of seconds if you're low on health and want to escape. And then the last spell in the defense category is probably the most powerful, overpowered spell for defensive purposes that you can find. For that, we're going to go back into creative mode. You'll need a Bereskia, Spirit Herb, Petals, Aubergine, and a Shield. This spell is very useful as when you use it, it kind of summons these three little floating petals around you that kind of absorbs any damage that is intended for you. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to run this command. Normally this would kill you, but with the petal shell spell, even slash kill cannot hurt you at all. Now be wary that there is only 3 hits per cast of this, and it does not stack. So if something hits you 3 times, the spell will be nullified and will need to be recast to be effective again. Then coming to our last category of spells that we can use is just the miscellaneous spell. The first one being Iced Touch. So for that you're going to need Dugonia, the 3 snow variants being the Snow Block, Snow Carpet, and Snowball, and a Blue Orchid. So this is, as it says, just turn stuff into ice and can summon snow around you as well. Then we have probably one of the, or not one of the, another overpowered spell that this mod adds, being Light Drifter. This is very useful when exploring and can help you find a lot of stuff that other mods add. As I will demonstrate now, you'll need a Moonglow leaf, wild wheat, ender pearl, sunflower, and yellow dye. So what this does, it gives you a couple of seconds of spectator mode. So you can activate it and kind of fly down. When it's not a super flat world, you'll be able to see caves and stuff like that, or see through walls and so on to find secret passages. And all in all, I use this spell a lot, especially when looking for spawners or dungeons or stuff like that. The last spell is also very useful. You're going to need a Moonglow Leaf, Bereskia, Clock, Ender Pearl, and a Potion of Slowness. This is the stop spell. So what this does is, if we have a couple of friends here again, we go back into survival mode, they're going to want to chase us. With the activation of this spell, it will kind of freeze them in place for a couple of seconds, allowing you to escape. This is an area of effect, so you'll see many of these other mobs won't be affected at all throughout the duration of the spell. This has a bigger cooldown, but in a pinch, it can be very useful to save your life from a big group of enemies trying to attack you. Important to note, though, is that although it might save you, if you activate the spell and hit something, they will take damage once, but as long as the spell is active, they won't take any more damage than that. So it's important to make use of the time that you get from this spell. So that brings us to the end of part 4. Join me next time when we're going to be looking at the rituals that the mod add. There's some really interesting ones that could really make a lot of the other stuff in this mod a lot easier to get as well. So this is kind of just an integrated thing that you can use later on as well. So see you there.